right, I am really excited to talk about this topic today, medications, obesogens, and weight gain. This is so important because it is literally the world we live in. And we've had a lot of interest in this program because I think people feel they're at a point where they're just stuck, right? It's like I'm doing everything right, and I still am having so many issues with whether it's your weight or just your overall health. So I'm going to, let me just check one thing. Okay, so I'm going to get started, and I'm going to first start with, today's agenda. And as you all know, we're going to talk about medications that may be inhibiting your ability to lose weight. You will better understand why certain medications cause weight gain. You're going to learn about environmental substances that cause weight gain. And really at the end of the day, it's all about, starting to think differently about health, wellness, and weight loss. So just a brief introduction on why I'm here today. I am super duper passionate about this stuff. And I really just, even as a younger child, I just really wanted to understand the body. How does the body work? And so that led me up until this day. And when I decided to open up a business, it was like weight loss seemed to be the perfect fit, because I did feel like we weren't doing enough to help people get to their optimal wellness. And I myself have been through my own journey. I've had many experiences and circumstances that I believe firmly I was meant to go through that, because it has put me in the position to help other people. And my health ultimately transformed the way that I think and the way that I developed and created this practice. And I always put this in here. I mean, gosh, and I feel like I'm so old, but sports absolutely 100% was my life. That's what people knew me for. I played at a pretty high level. I went to UW-Madison. I played there, was All-American, and ended up, I played with the national team for a little bit. So it was all about feeling great, performing well, and keeping your body at optimal health. So, since then I got the degree in dietetics, and then went on to really, I was really led more toward the integrative health type of thing, understanding how the whole body works, not really conventional medicine. It was like a little bit, I was kind of drawn away from that early on. I also have a certification in food sensitivities, or what we refer to as lifestyle eating and performance, which all comes into play for the whole body health. A little bit about Weighless MD. I opened the business in 2015. I am the only medical weight loss clinic that is owned by a registered dietitian nutritionist. So my background is a registered dietitian nutritionist that I took, obviously, I went on and got other accreditations, but not many medical weight loss clinics have kind of the mentality of nutrition being really the foundation, and really understanding the body and identifying root issues in the body is really what's going to, excel people into optimal health. We create all of our own programs because we just understand what works, how the body responds to certain things. We're experts in weight loss. It is literally all we do. We eat, breathe, and live it every single day. And now Weighless MD is now a franchise. So I franchised in 2022. So that is a big push, because really, at the end of the day, I do feel that we have something very unique that needs to be, really spread and, allow for other people to utilize what we offer. So I'm going to start with some medications. I'm going to go really quick through this section. The whole point of really the medication part, and then I'm going to get into like the obesogens. I'm not going to get into detail, but this is all about bringing awareness to what appears to be a very normal system that we live in. We are put on medications for everything. We don't really fully understand what it's doing in our body. We don't understand what comes with it. So that is where I just want to, the whole point is to bring true awareness to, what really health means. So the drug classes that absolutely can cause weight gain are antidepressants, synthetic hormones, antihistamines, beta blockers, sleep aids, steroids, diabetic medications, mood stabilizers, anti-epileptics, and antipsychotics. I will go into a little bit more detail, but again, I don't want to get caught up in the details. But the majority of people, well, it says it right here, 2/3 of adults are on at least, well, not many are on only one, but 2/3 at least are on a prescription medication. So the antidepressants would fall under the category of your SSRIs, your serotonin reuptake inhibitors, fluoxetine, sertraline, Lexapro, citalopram. I haven't said that one in a while. And paroxetine. The big ones, I actually used to be a pharmaceutical rep. So I actually sold, what did I sell? I sold none of these. I sold the ones down here. But the big ones for weight gain that are so evident would be Prozac and Paxil. We used to call it in the pharmaceutical world pack it on Paxil, because you go on that medication and you just watch people gain weight. And then you have your serotonin, norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. These are a slightly different mechanism of action of antidepressants because they affect the serotonin and the norepinephrine. The SSRIs just are affecting the serotonin. So these are a newer class of drugs. I actually sold this one, venlafaxine Effexor. And we actually sold it as a weight neutral medication, but then they later found that it was causing some weight gain. Duloxetine, otherwise known as Cymbalta, also has weight gaining effects. And then you have your tricyclic antidepressants. These really aren't used as much anymore, TCAs, but they were notorious for causing weight gain in anyone who was on that. So antidepressants, again, briefly, you're going to hear a lot of the same kind of, story of what's happening, but antidepressants interact with what's called acetylcholine and histamine receptors. So when these receptors, because that's what drugs do, they're affecting like many different receptors. And these drugs, when these receptors are blocked, they can cause weight gain for multiple reasons. But again, we're not going to get into that. We will a little bit later. They interfere with serotonin. Serotonin is so important. It's the main neurotransmitter that regulates our mood and our appetite. So when serotonin is fluctuating or is low, someone's going to feel that. They're going to have more cravings. They're going to crave more sugar. They're going to crave more higher carb foods. So that's where these antidepressants can really kind of change that whole system. They can trigger changes in your metabolism that actually cause the body to use calories less efficiently, and they may increase blood sugar, which we know is never good because then that prompts that insulin response. Anyone who's heard me talk for so many years, metabolic health is all about the insulin and the blood sugar. And, that's really foundational in really supporting your body's ability to lose weight. Synthetic hormones, and I wanted to put so many more down, but I thought I would just leave it at this because there's so much to talk about. But oral contraceptives, Depo-Provera, IUDs, not only do they contribute to weight gain, they're so bad. And I'm not a hormone expert. I'd have my hormone expert practitioner come in and talk more about this, but she, we're always trying to get people off of these synthetic hormones. They can cause, fluid retention, they increase your appetite, and they do cause this alteration in fat storage. And they also just disrupt your normal hormonal balance. As you can imagine, when you're taking in a synthetic hormone, hormones are all about balancing act. So if you affect one thing, it's going to in turn affect the other hormones in the body. Antihistamines. You see so many people on this stuff. Serotype Allegra, Benadryl. Gosh, there's such a story about a guy on Benadryl that I wish I could tell, but it's kind of crazy. Claritin and sleep aids. There's not one person that I have seen personally who if they are on a sleep aid, they're having trouble losing weight. And then the next step is getting them off because they have such an effect on the body's normal physiology that is very detrimental. So we're always like, we got to get people off of these sleep aids. Histamine affects the appetite control center in the brain. So again, kind of going back to the previous medication, if you're blocking that receptor, your body's you're not going to trigger satiety. So you're going to have an appetite that is erroneously, increased because of the medication. Beta blockers, very commonly used for blood pressure. Examples would be atenolol, metoprolol, and there's so many. They all typically end in like OL. Those are your beta blockers. And they're known to reduce your resting energy expenditure. So that's kind of like your metabolism, your basal metabolism. They are known to reduce your thermic effect of food. And really what that means is your body's ability to actually burn calories. They can reduce exercise tolerance, increase tiredness or fatigue. They inhibit lipolysis, which is fat metabolism, and they can exacerbate insulin resistance. So these have multiple metabolic effects on the body. Sleep aids, zolpidem, or is that zolpidem? Zolpidem, benzos, trazodone is a big one. I see people, not a ton, enough, where trazodone, these are just, these are medications that, again, they're maybe putting you in a catatonic state to help you sleep, but what they're doing from like a biological standpoint is very detrimental. There's so many other things that we can do to help people sleep, and of course it's always going back to the foundation. Let's fix the foundation so that the body gets to that healing state. But sleep aids cause weight gain. They increase appetite, cause more increase like night eating, snacking. And while you're craving more food, your metabolism is slowing down. So that's where people notice the weight gain relatively quickly. Glucocorticoids, steroids, otherwise known as steroids. So prednisone would be a good example of this. Most people know that these are known to cause weight gain. So they can alter our electrolyte balance and metabolism, and they can cause changes in fat deposition, and they also increase appetite. So you can kind of see the trend that most are affecting the same systems, which ultimately are affecting our metabolic health. Even diabetic medications, which most people would really not ever think that these would cause weight gain. But glyburide or insulin, the whole point of these is to help people that are having blood sugar issues get the sugar from the blood into the cell, because they can't get the sugar or the food that's broken down in the sugar into the cell, so the body can't use it for energy. And that's why, just as a side note, you may have heard that people, when they lose a ton of weight before they're diagnosed with diabetes, and then after they're diagnosed and they're put on insulin, then they start to gain a lot of weight. Because what happens prior to that, when you're diabetic, the sugar is not getting into the cell. It is literally being excreted from your body, so your body's in a starved state. So that's why diabetics lose all that weight, because that's very confusing for some people. But when you start to take these products, they help the sugar get into the cells. So now the sugar, or the body, is being fed. So it increases the storage of calories, basically. Diabetic medication can also, you can kind of overshoot. If you overshoot, you can cause a low blood sugar. And whenever you have low blood sugar, you will always crave sugar or food. So that's kind of what happens with those particular medications. Mood stabilizers can absolutely cause weight gain. The main thing would be with appetite, from what I have seen. Anti-epileptics, so examples of this would be valproate. Gabapentin is a very common one. We really don't see many people on these medications. Gabapentin is, again, realizing that all of these medications are used off-label. I mean, people are on antidepressants for hot flashes. People are on antidepressants for knee pain. So just keep that in mind too. Like I'm going through categories of drugs, but you may be receiving gabapentin for anxiety or something like that. And it's just the mere fact of that these medications are just overused and they're just like passed out and do we really know what they truly do? So again, you kind of see this kind of the medication for this class of drugs is going to increase the appetite. Antipsychotics can also have a significant effect on your weight. It increases the incidence of metabolic syndrome. Antipsychotics really touch on many receptors. So there's many different ways that the body alters its normal physiology. I mean, it's affecting the serotonin, the histamine, the dopamine, adrenergic receptors. So the antipsychotics you never really know what you're going to get for side effects with this particular medication. The thing that I wanted to point out, which nobody ever talks about or mentions, is that we know the pharmaceutical industry runs the world. We know that they're a multi-trillion-dollar industry that basically run everything, from the medical schools to the diet. Everything that I learn is now run by medical. So that's where I kind of like went out and went more into the integrative type of scenario. But what we don't talk about is that we don't have studies on medications being taken together. We don't test polypharmacy. So if you're on 3 different medications, how do we really know how those are interacting with each other? We just don't. We are just, going out there, gangbusters, putting people on a slew of medications that we really don't know what that's doing. So I'm just going to briefly touch on possible alternative options for those of you who are listening to this and you're like, oh, I'm on that medication. What would be an option? These are just, again, a quick short list, assuming that you need to be on the medication, because usually when you come to Weighless MD, we're always like, what are you on? Do you need to be on it? Usually if it's kind of like for blood pressure, cholesterol, you don't. So just kind of keep in mind that there's always a root cause for everything. And that's really what you should be thinking. So antidepressant, a better option would be bupropion. So that's just a different class of an antidepressant that's more weight neutral. Instead of synthetic hormones, bioidentical hormone replacement has been proven for years and years to be extremely beneficial. We actually do hormones. We have a hormone specialist in the clinic. Antihistamines, anyone who has chronic allergies, sniffles, there's an underlying condition. So there are supplements that can help, but keep in mind that usually if anyone, who requires an antihistamine, it's usually like a gut issue. So we're looking deeper into like what's going on with the gut. Beta blockers, if you ask your doctor for something more weight neutral, would be called an ACE inhibitor. Sleep aids, there's so many great, unbelievable products out there that really can calm the nervous system down, calm the racing thoughts. and without being like sedated with these, medications. So examples would be like melatonin, CBD. I don't have a lot of experience with CBD. I've heard really good things. You just have to really know what you're doing. And then GABA, which is like an amino acid that really helps calm the system down. For steroids, low dose naltrexone has been, life-changing for people to build, help with the immune system. And then diabetic agents, GLP-1 receptor agonist, which is what we're using now, like the semaglutide, is one of those diabetic agents that is actually for weight loss. And then mood stabilizer, again, you have bupropion, and then antipsychotics, Abilify, is more weight neutral. So the summary is that medications alter our body's normal physiology, obviously. It's important to know that medications are full of fillers, additives, preservatives, dyes. There's so much in those things. So if you're consuming a bunch of medications, do you really know what's going in your body? So that's kind of the main point, is it's not only about the medication that's doing all of this, it's the other stuff that is in the product. Most medications suppress the symptoms while the illness gets worse. I mean, these medications do not address the root issue by any means. They suppress the immune system, they suppress the symptoms. You might feel better for a little bit, but then you will likely end up on another medication because you're not getting better. You're just you're chasing the symptom is what you're doing. You're chasing the symptom until you get to a point where you come to us and you're like, oh, okay. No, but this is where, like, this is the system. People just get fed up and then they're like, okay, there's gotta be something else. Medications are tested individually, like I said, and there's no known effects of combining multiple medications. The majority of medications that are prescribed are lifestyle induced, and they're not necessary, despite what you've been told. The majority of diagnoses, diseases are absolutely preventable. I will say that with the disclaimer of there are some medications that are life-saving. They are, but it's very, very few. I mean, we're now handing out candy or medication like it's candy. I mean, it's gotten to that. It's gotten really, really bad. So just understand that, if you're dealing with some type of condition, there's an 80% chance that condition is likely, reversible. So now we're going to talk about obesogens. Sorry. And I would be curious to know if anyone really has heard of this term, because if you start to research it, you will find a lot out there. So essentially what it is it's chemical compounds that affect normal development and function of lipid metabolism. Lipid just means fat. And it also affects our endocrine system. So what these compounds do is they alter fat storage, they change our set points, so our weight set points, and they disrupt energy balance. They modify our appetite regulation. They absolutely put so much stress on the liver, and they essentially pollute our body. So they are everywhere. And again, I was talking to, again, Erica, who helps me with developing content. And I just felt like this presentation was going to be really overwhelming. But I wanted to make sure that I kind of put everything out there so you knew the extent of how much we're being bombarded in the world we live in. And so at the end, I'll hopefully bring it all together where it's like, just start somewhere, because we are literally being bombarded everywhere with toxicity. It's in our food, it's in our water, it's in the baby toys, it's in the baby food, it's in cookware, it's in cleaning supplies, anything that we're rubbing on our face, even the ones that they say are clean, it still could be, toxic chemicals. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but the main thing is that our endocrine system is our hormonal system, and that's really, I'll help you understand how it affects that. Most of the obesogens they are considered endocrine disrupting compounds. So obesogens start, and this is my brain is just going because I've always said I wanted to focus on pregnant women or women who are thinking about having babies, because we don't do enough education about that, because literally what the woman does and what she eats and what she's exposed to, it goes to the baby. It absolutely goes to the baby. So these obesogens start as early in the mother's womb, and these babies are exposed to these endocrine disrupting compounds in their very, very early stages of development. And this is what now starts the phase of obesity later in life. So you may call it genetic, call it what you want, but usually, genetics always play somewhat of a role, but there's so much more to that story. These obesogens increase the risk of diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and cancer. This is all in the research. And for the younger fetuses, it's so huge because their body's not even developed. They don't even know, the body was not made to detoxify chemicals as an infant. So they're hanging on to this stuff as they go into toddler, childhood, and into adulthood. The impact of prenatal exposure to these compounds on a fetus metabolism may even be transmitted to future generations. So this is the talk track now. There's a lot of people out there that are very, very worried about this world that we live in and how much we are exposed to. So what do? Really, it's all about our metabolic health. They disrupt the endocrine system, but they also disrupt the metabolic system. They increase the number of fat cells that you have. They increase the storage capacity of fat cells, so you're now able to hang on to more calories. It shifts energy balance to more energy storage because it alters the microbiome. We're not really going to talk at all about the microbiome, which is kind of like the foundation of the human body, but these chemicals destroy the healthy organisms. And when you destroy the healthy organisms, your body's not metabolically resistant. So now, your basal metabolic rate has now been disrupted, and you are now more in like a calorie storing mode rather than a calorie burning mode. They also modify hormonal control of the appetite and your satiety, your hunger cues. So I'm going to briefly go through the top 5 obesogens. There's so many more, but we'll just touch on a few. BPA. Oh, man. Okay, BPA, I think we all are familiar with this. It's like on our water bottles. They finally banned it from being on baby bottles. Thank you, FDA, if you did that. I'm not sure if it was you, but so it's that toxic. It's that toxic. So it's a synthetic compound used to make polycarbonate plastic and resins that line food and beverages and cans, etc. So, you can kind of see this image here. There, plastic, the plastic bottles are the biggest contributor, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So the reason why there's such a problem is they have the BPA is a similar structure to estradiol, which is estrogen, right? So it's a form of estrogen that is the main female sex hormone. BPA easily binds to the estrogen-related receptors in the body. And I've been saying forever, I mentioned that I played soccer at a really high level, played college soccer. And like, when I go to games now, I'm like, these girls are bigger. And I'm like, I knew like the food had hormones. We're fed so much that is not like a normal part of physiology. we're just bigger as a species because of what we're exposed to. BPA also can induce insulin resistance, inflammation in the body, oxidative stress, and actually can promote the formation of fat cells, which I will explain a little bit more. Phthalates. I think this is one of the most pronounced, chemicals, compounds in, that we're exposed to every day. So again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but they're found everywhere. They're in our cosmetics, baby toys, in all of our, our flooring, our wallpaper, paint, glue, adhesives, again, the list goes on. Your car. I had this one car that whenever I would get in it, I would immediately have brain fog. And I was like, I just knew it was like all of the chemicals that I was breathing when I was sitting in that car. So you will, now that you know this, and maybe you already do, but just pay attention to certain environments that you're in. You will immediately feel if it's a toxic environment based on like your brain clarity, your fatigue, you will feel it. So phthalates, again, they bind to androgen, which is the main male sex hormone. So this impairs testosterone synthesis, resulting in anti-androgen effects that contribute to obesity. It affects cell signaling pathways involved in metabolism. It's been correlated with the development of obesity and type 2 diabetes. There are studies that have been done in children that have linked these compounds to an increase in BMI. Atrazine is a pesticide. Pesticides are everywhere. So atrazine, and this is like, you see this image, I wanted to put this image because this is literally what is sprayed on all of our fruits and vegetables every day. This is just, it's killing all of the healthy probiotics, enzymes, everything that food is supposed to provide for us as humans. We're knocking it out. We're basically killing it. So we consume, like, I always describe it as like dead food. It's not viable anymore. So atrazine is a herbicide widely used in the United States. It has anti-androgenic and estrogenic effects. It reduces the production of luteinizing hormone, a hormone involved in the sexual development and functioning of that hormone. Long-term exposure increases the risk of obesity and insulin resistance. And this herbicide has a potential effect on chronic diseases that go beyond diabetes. We're talking now, there's been correlation with cancer, birth disabilities. There's such a huge increase in these kids with autism and things like that. And it's literally tied to all of these chemicals in our food system. Organotins, the last group here. These are everywhere as well. They're in our clothes, the vinyl. Vinyl's everywhere. Our school supplies, the flooring, plastic toys. So again, I know that this is like getting really overwhelming, but again, the point is to just help you wrap your head around the fact that it is everywhere. So now's the time to, kind of make small changes so that you can start to minimize some of that, just exposure. Organotins promote the formation of fat cells. They result in increased fat accumulation, and they actually can reduce muscle mass. Animal studies show, so they do obviously a lot on mice, studies before they go into humans and things like that. But they found that, so they gave mice these organotins when they were pregnant and through lactation, and they found that these mice had a significantly higher amount of fat cells, and the fat cells were larger. So then they did studies in humans, and the adverse effects were beyond just the metabolic, obesity. It was also affecting the heart, the brain, and the immune system. Okay, I lied. This is the last one. perfluorooctanoic acid, PFOA. So it's a surfactant used in waterproof clothing, our nonstick cookware, and microwavable food items. So again, it's, kind of, we're exposed in many areas, but the main exposure is in our water source. And once it's ingested, it really just kind of stays in your body and causes so many issues until you actually start to like try to, attack it and get it out of your body. It also activates receptors in your body that are involved in fat metabolism. So I talked a lot about just like environmental obesogens, but I just did one slide on the food obesogens. And there's really, this is a whole presentation in itself, but food obesogens, so meat, eggs, cheese, so anything coming from an animal, they are given high doses of growth hormones to increase their mass, which of course, this is incentivized to the farmers because they get paid more, they can sell more. So the majority of animals are fed growth hormones. And amongst other things, antibiotics, the majority of these farm animals they have so many different infections. So they are also treated with a ton of infections. So what you can do is choose organic. This is where I understand that organic is more expensive, but when you're talking animal protein, it's the best approach is to, protect yourself, because you almost always can guarantee there's going to be some form of antibiotic or hormones in that food. The processed foods, high fructose corn syrup is a extremely cheap form of sugar that is in almost every packaged food that we know. And really it is there because it improves like that palatable sensitivity, and people want more of it. It's sugar, so you eat sugar, you want more sugar. It is actually known to be one of the main contributors to this obesity epidemic. There are many studies on this, and this is the main contributor to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And so those people that are have fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic, and they're I never had alcohol a day in my life. Well, they have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease from high fructose corn syrup, or just sugar in general. So this is actually derived from corn, but once it's processed, it's consumed as a chemical. Food companies are allowed by the FDA, they allow this, to use terms such as corn syrup, corn sugar, fructose, glucose, maize syrup. And so it's deceiving people who are actually looking for chemical names on the label. So the FDA allows them to use these terms, and they actually allow them to use these terms because of all the bad press that high fructose corn syrup had. So people were highly aware of it. Everyone was looking at the labels. So yeah, this is just kind of how our system works. So many food additives that are obesogens or suspected obesogens are designated. Well, I'll talk a little bit more about this. Actually, I'm gonna pass this last point here. Tap water. I could not finish this without talking a little bit about tap water. We are getting to the end. I know this is a lot of information. So tap water is full of stuff, it's full of heavy metals that are leached from the old pipes that it's going through. Most are equipped now with modern plumbing that PVC, so that is a major obesogen that we're consuming if we're drinking tap water. Fluoride, I know most people will be like, what? Fluoride is so good for my teeth. So fluoride is super duper toxic. If you dig a little deeper and not go on the CDC website, you'll see that there's so much research showing how detrimental fluoride is. So the research shows that a buildup of fluoride in our body can lead to fibromyalgia, bone weakness, heart disease, ADHD, and a host of other degenerative diseases. Fluoride is also a goitrogen. I know what it is, I just can't say it. So that is actually something that is going to bind to iodine and affect the function of the thyroid. So we are seeing everybody. I mean, there's so many people now that have thyroid conditions, and it's because of all of these other metals that are binding to the, the necessary nutrients that we need to function, for our bodies to function. And the thyroid is one of those main things that is affected by that. Fluoride is a major obesogen, and for the most part, people are consuming it every day. And they're also brushing with it, and then they're getting fluoride treatments when they go to see their doctor or their dentist. So yeah, if you all want to talk even further about it, but again, this is just an opportunity for you to start digging a little deeper into some of these things, because I'm shocked every day when I just learn new things. And but again, I'm just here to help you all and prepare you all, and really at the end of the day want you to live your healthiest life. So are we really protected? And I added this slide last minute because I always think back to what my mom always said, because I'm like, oh, why are you drinking out of that? It's so bad. Or you can't eat that. My mom would serve raw beef and onions you think it was even like last year. I mean, they still do it, and she's like super healthy, but so that's another thing. But she would say to me, Sherry, why are you so worried about it? If it was unhealthy, the FDA would not allow us to consume this stuff. And I'd just be like, okay, that's a battle I'm not going to win. So let me break it down. The FDA, who is legally responsible for ensuring safety of our food supply, recently finalized a rule that allows manufacturers to decide for themselves what they want to add into our food. 70% of the standard American diet is processed. Today, an estimated 3,000 chemicals that we are exposed to and we consume every single day have never been tested. There's a term called generally recognized as safe. And this was a term that came to be back in the 1950s and reinvented itself not too long ago. And essentially, this is the loophole in the system that really allows anything to go into your food. It protects the FDA from having to actually test it if they call it generally recognized as safe. So the whole point of this is that it's kind of on you now, because it's up to you to take this on and do your due diligence, read the food labels, eat whole food, stay away from the processed food, because you're not protected. And if you feel crappy and you are having trouble losing weight and your liver is sluggish and you have brain fog, now it's time to really, now it's on you to really clean that up. So we're toxic loaded, and little is known about these obesogens on human health. Much less is known about their interaction with other risk factors for obesity, like inflammation, the diet, the timing of eating, appetite regulation. According to the animal studies, these endocrine disrupting compounds, they accumulate significantly in the tissues. And again, it's predisposing these future generations to obesity and other metabolic disorders. So it's a big piece to our obesity epidemic. And so this is why when we started looking deeper into how to help people lose weight, it was all about being strategic. So why this all matters for weight loss is what I will explain in the next slides. So toxins. Most toxins are what we refer to as lipophilic. they are drawn to fat tissue. They prefer to be stored in the fat tissue. They accumulate in that visceral fat area versus the subcutaneous. The subcutaneous is the pinchable stuff. You know, you can pinch it. The visceral, you can. It's deeper into the inter-abdominal area. When toxins are stored in the visceral, the body will not use that for energy. It will resist mobilizing these fats because it's full of chemicals and toxins. So the body's like, I'm just gonna kind of tuck you down in the basement there. I'm gonna leave you there. And if I don't see you or use you, then it's fine. And so that's why people have such a hard time losing weight, because you'll lose kind of like the same stuff over and over, but the body's smart enough where it doesn't allow that to kind of come into circulation. When you lose weight quickly, such as, many people are familiar with the keto diet, and we've heard about the keto flu, and that actually was toxins coming into circulation. Keto flu is toxins coming into circulation because that's what it's known for, to burning fat. So that's a very common part to aggressive weight loss. That's why when I started to develop these different programs, I'm like, we got to control those toxins coming out, because they can actually recirculate, cause more harm if you don't get rid of them. And when toxins start to accumulate, again, it builds up, causes inflammation. Inflammation is the beginning of every chronic disease. So if I haven't stated my point yet, to put it in perspective, there's 45 different chemicals that are commonly found in indoor dust. Many of them, again, will disrupt the endocrine systems. In just personal care products, we can consume up to 165 chemicals a day. This is mainly for women because we're putting stuff all over our bodies. More than 40,000 chemicals used in consumer products in the US, according to the EPA, have not been tested. Less than 1% have been tested. And we are exposed to over 100,000 chemicals in the United States. And don't quote me on that, because it was 80,000, but then I read another article and it said it's up to over 100,000 chemicals that are allowed to be disseminated into our environment, in our system. So it begs the question is like, okay, this is all fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, it's like, how do you feel? I'm always like, how do you feel? Because if you feel great every day, you have energy, wake up, and you're ready for the day, like, maybe you don't have to worry about this. You're doing all the right things. But the majority of people we see do not feel good. And this is a big piece to it. A typical day of exposure is, I'm going to go through this really quickly, from our sheets to our bed, laundry detergent, forget about it. You please find a clean product. All of your cleaning products need to go. Again, I know it's overwhelming, but again, I'm just building awareness to all of these things that have a lot of chemicals. Toothpaste, again, there's warning signs on toothpaste. If you ever read the fine print, it says contact a poison control center if your child consumes more than a pea size. Okay, and we're putting that in our mouth. So wrong. Fragrances and other products in our shampoos and conditioners, our makeup, lots of stuff in our makeup. We just have to be more diligent about. And then we have our food for our kids. The cereal is probably one of the worst processed foods on the market. And it is known to, so many have been pulled off the market because it's shown to have like arsenic and so many other just harmful chemicals. And this is what we're feeding our young kids, which is really sad. And then we get into our car and we have like, I sometimes I see people with like 6 of these air fresheners, like right next to their head. And, if you have those, this is the one thing you can do is is go into your car and take that out and throw it in the garbage. And then our air fresheners, our Febreze. I am one of those friends that don't let friends use toxic air fresheners. I can't control myself. Sometimes I don't even know people very well, and I will have to pull them aside and say, you know, these are neurotoxic. They actually have an effect on the brain. So again, just an opportunity to clean up the environment. And then of course our water, really recommend getting a clean water filter. Limit the water in bottles. Never drink Nestle. I worked for Nestle. Trust me, don't ever drink Nestle bottles. Don't drink out of these bottles either. Drink, I don't know if this is BPA, it's still plastic. Some are BPA free, but your best choice is going to be, I think I outline it, like glass and things like that. So signs of toxicity: weight gain or you can't lose weight, constipation, constant fatigue, skin problems, acne, headaches, migraines, mood swings, bad breath, muscle pains, overheating or sweating, or insomnia. These are all signs of toxicity. So what it comes down to is, how full is your bucket? And it absolutely is truly what it means, because our body can take so much, it can detox so much, but if too much is coming in and we can't get rid of what our capacity is able to get rid of, then that's when disease starts to set in. So really it is about how you feel. And most people know if they feel well or if they feel not well. So just some things, to summarize, some things that you can do today to start reducing some of the exposure. Eat organic. Eat organic meats, and for fruits and vegetables, Google Dirty Dozen and make sure if you're eating those foods that fall under that, just choose those organic, because those are literally, they're like doused in pesticides. So you're consuming it. Rather than eating, don't ever buy fish that's farm raised, always buy wild caught. Because when they're on a farm, they have control and they're feeding them stuff, versus if they're wild, they're eating maybe what they're supposed to be eating, but they're still worried about, mercury and things like that. Avoid any flexible plastics whenever possible, especially in children's toys. Don't drink out of plastic bottles. Use stainless steel or glass. Use a good quality reverse osmosis water filter in your home. If you guys want any recommendations, I will give them to you. I've researched it till the sun went down. So I have really good recommendations if you want to get a home water filtration system. Avoiding using plastics with foods or beverages. Again, choosing glass jars for storing. Don't, for leftovers, put it in glass. Don't put it in plastic, because that seeps into it. Use natural toiletries and personal care items, cleaning supplies. Again, this is an overwhelming one, but you're only going to pick a couple to start out. Replace your nonstick pots and pans with ceramic or glass. This is actually something I just learned because I have a vinyl shower curtain. So you could replace that with like a fabric one. And then this is a big one, get rid of all of the plugins, the air fresheners, the fabric softeners. I can't tell you how many chemicals are in those products. And then look for natural chemical free that's not as easy as, it's easier said than done. But there are certain ways that, you can find which furniture and different things that you can use and that are chemical free, or, have less chemicals. So this is why strategic weight loss, we had to take a different approach, because the body is toxic loaded, period. It's toxic loaded. So, we say it all the time, you can't just go on like a low calorie diet and exercise more, because it just doesn't work. So you must be able to detox, get rid of some of that stuff while you lose weight. So that's kind of why strategic weight loss came along. We target the inflammatory fat that is not metabolized by reducing calories alone. So again, this deeper visceral belly fat is where all of the toxins like to find their way to. So they're stored there. So that's why when you lose weight, you'll kind of lose a little bit of like the subcutaneous in certain areas, maybe like up in your face, you'll lose, but it doesn't touch this waist visceral area because that's where all of the junk is stored. So you have to be strategic in trying to get rid of that. So our programs are designed to improve your metabolic health by enhancing insulin sensitivity. We are reducing inflammation in the body. And by doing those things, your body is actually, there is stored calories here. So this is a way for your body to use calories in a deprived caloric state. Your body is just choosing not to do it because it's protecting yourself. But we have found a way to actually get the body to release those calories so we can start to burn it. Because most people have, I think it's like 80,000 calories of stored calories in their fat. So that, think about it, like we should be able to access those calories. And for the majority of people, it just never happens. All right.